Hi, everyone. Welcome to Make It Change. This is going to be my first net worth quarterly review, so we'll see how it goes. You can see that I do reveal the time along the bottom, but I don't reveal the dollar amounts. They would be along the left-hand edge. I think it's important, at least for now, to maybe not reveal the numbers. I don't want anyone to be discouraged. There's really no reason for anyone to be. And the really important, lesson, thing to learn, thing to observe is just the upward movement to the upper right-hand area. This is really what you're looking for. What I will be able to talk about is the amount of growth from last quarter and from the prior year. I calculate these separately in a spreadsheet that this image is based on. I suppose I should roll back and just say I have a spreadsheet where I track my budget. I also have a spreadsheet where I track my net worth each quarter, and based on the numbers in that spreadsheet, I generate these images. So I'm just going to mark out the square that will represent last quarter. Yeah, March 2021. Okay. All right, so those line segments represent a quarterly growth rate in my net worth of 9.05% in through the second quarter. I also calculate the yearly growth in net worth. And so for that, I'll go back to June of 2020. Here we go. Mark this out, June to June. And so the yearly growth rate is 49%. Yes, that's right, 49%. Now, to me, this is a little artificial because we know when 1 year ago was. That was June 2020. So, still in the pandemic, still when the market was taking a hit. And so, of course, everyone's investments were down. You can see here, I believe you can see the cursor. This is March of 2020 when, everyone was impacted by, everyone's investments were impacted by the pandemic, by the coronavirus, by COVID-19. And so there had been some recovery by June, but, things weren't still where they would have been, if nothing had happened. So having a air quote growth rate of 49% June to June, this is slightly artificial. Because June of 2020 is depressed because of the pandemic. But it is real growth. It is what ended up happening. Now, for these quarter to quarter growth in net worth or year over year growth in net worth, I don't separate out the growth of the investments from my contributions. I bundle it all together and I just calculate the difference because this is just purely the growth in the net worth, wherever it's coming from growth in the investments or from my contributions. I bundle it all together because at the end of the day, it's largely immaterial or it's all the same thing. What I care about is that the net worth is growing. So for the last year, June 2020 to June 2021, there's a growth rate of 49%. For March to June of 2021, there's a growth rate of 9%. And I think this is a little bit of an acceleration still from the recovery of the pandemic. Though you can see that these lines, they begin to look like they're curving a bit more upwards. It does make me wonder what's going to come over the year from going into the middle of 2022. I don't think that this growth, this trajectory, the slope of these lines can be sustainable, but we'll all find out together. So let's see, let me mark out March, so Q1. So for Q1, the growth rate was, there we go. So those line segments, the growth rate, the quarterly growth rate in net worth was 7.57%. So, we're still recovering from the pandemic. And the growth rate year over year, so this is March 2021 to March of 2020. And here you'll really see, an artificial sounding number. The growth rate for that is 68%. And so you can see, oh, okay, this is just because things were depressed from the pandemic, and yet the recovery, is real. That growth really did happen. It's just that this low point it did happen, it's real, but it's a little bit artificial. Let me mark out some other territory. Let's go back to, let's see, December of 2019, just to illustrate how this works. December of 2019 to December 2018. So these line segments, let me look at my notes. So there's a quarterly growth rate, which would be this portion here of 12.31% in net worth growth. And then there's a yearly net worth growth, so December 2019 to December 2018 of 44%. And so you can see, there's lots of little wobbling around in there. The last few years, things have been fairly unsteady in the stock market and with investments. But yeah, so those are my growth rates, my most recent growth rates, and just a short exploration of other areas on the chart. And I think it's really important for a person to develop a habit of reviewing their net worth. And I don't think you have to do it very often. Certainly not every week or anything like that. Some people do it monthly. I don't know that monthly is even necessarily called for. I do think it's a good idea to do it quarterly so that it's at least on your mind 4 times a year. And the important part in terms of your approach to financial independence and, your approach to your investments is to just notice and, take pride and, feel really good about, feel very accomplished and happy about having your net worth line moving in this upwards to the right direction. That's the right direction for it. You're having success if that is the direction that it's moving in. And don't be perturbed by events like this. I mean, we were all in the pandemic. We all know what was going on. And so when you see this on your net worth chart, don't panic. Don't think, oh, I need to rearrange my investments. You don't. It's just time needs to go by, and then your investments recover. I'm not a financial planner. You should seek financial planning advice from a professional. This is my experience, and this is my personal data. But that is what ends up happening. Things wobble. I can't quite remember what this dip was, but something happened in September to December of 2018, Q4 of 2018, something happened. But I didn't go in and rearrange my investments or anything like that. I just left things the way that they were, and time moved forward, investments moved forward, and investors figured themselves out. You can see on the chart that I don't carry any debt. I made a conscious decision about that years ago. Here is where the debt drops down. I took my accumulated savings, the majority of it, and I applied that to my outstanding debt. So this is in 2014. Yep. And I made that choice. It's a fine choice. Other people may have made different choices where they would have taken that amount of money to cancel out the debt, to then plow into investments. And that would have been a completely good choice, because then that money would have been invested and it would have been growing. Um, and then the debt would have continued, but the interest rate for the debt would probably have been lower than the amount of return on the investments, and so that would be a good choice. This is an example of just making sure you're keeping to the balance that makes sense for you. For me, it was important to get out from under the debt because I had carried it for so many years and I'd seen the effects that it was having on my life. And I just wanted to be free of it so that I could then, uh, you know, purely, be investing into my future. Let's see, maybe it's better if I do it like this. Yeah. Um, I don't think that I would have been able to achieve this amount of growth in the red is total liquid savings. I don't think I would have been able to achieve the growth in total liquid savings that I did over this time frame if I had been carrying the same debt. Um, or alternatively, I don't know that I would have been able to invest as much into investments and then, just have the lines following exactly the same progression. They would have still been moving upwards and towards the right, but their slopes would have been a little bit lower. Um, and that would be a perfectly fine choice. For me, I prioritized getting rid of the debt, especially because I could do it in one fell swoop, um, so that I was immediately from one day to the next, basically out from under it. Um, that mattered to me. So generally, there aren't too many wrong choices. It just kind of is whatever feels right for you. So this has been my Q2 2021 net worth roundup, and I encourage you to track your own net worth and check your charts and be happy about your progress. All right, well, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Goodbye. Oh, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.